Dzień dobry. I have now used all. I've prepared a short speech for today, but before I do that, I would like to just mention a personal note. This is my 4th visit to Katowice, and that's one of the characteristics of choosing a city by the EuroScience Association to be the European City of Science for a year, is that for 2 or 3 or 4 years before that happens, we get to know a city very well. And I am beginning to feel like the people that I know here, the president of city council, the rector of the university, and others, they're beginning to feel more like my friends than simply acquaintances that I meet in a formal meeting. And so I'm very, very happy. They keep inviting me back, so maybe you will see me again. But I'm particularly happy to be here. So, dear members, and I would say friends of the inter-university community, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely honored and grateful for the invitation that you've extended to me to present this inaugural lecture today. And I'm very happy to be with you here in Katowice, European City of Science 2024. We're celebrating today the start of a new inter-university year. Traditionally a moment of great expectation for students, faculty, and staff alike, and more generally for us all. The university student community is looking forward to learning, getting involved, taking new courses, making new friends, beginning new activities in sport, music, art, or elsewhere, and more generally just having fun. The university faculties and staff are excited to be sharing and transmitting knowledge and expertise, meeting new students, teaching a new generation, often with the support of new technologies, and also exploring new ideas, discovering new phenomena, and gaining through research and reflection new insights and understanding of the world around us, both past and present, and applying new methods and approaches for the creation of knowledge for the generations to come. Expectations are high, and traditionally at this time of the year, we are all looking forward to the future. But is that really the case in 2022? Are we truly confident that we will in fact have a future? What are we experiencing today? Unprovoked military aggression in Eastern Europe in flagrant violation of established international law on an unprecedented scale in our lifetimes. Increasing threats to the availability of the energy and raw materials so indispensable for our standard of living and for our national economies. Record shortages of food and other bare necessities for millions of our fellow human beings within and beyond Europe and throughout the world. And a climate crisis that is only just beginning and to which we must all adapt as individuals in our behaviors and as societies in our structures and organizations. All of this following a global pandemic that for more than 2 years has taken millions of lives and profoundly affected our families, our interpersonal relations, our working environments, and our personal well-being. In the face of these major threats and impending risks, we might feel overwhelmed and frightened for our future. But fear should not be our response. Someone that many of you may remember, Karol Wojtyła, future Pope John Paul II, announced in his inaugural address in Rome on the 22nd of October 1978, at that time, in the second half of the 20th century, and in the face of the tremendous challenges of a sharply polarized world, major political unrest and division, and an acute energy crisis, a bold and optimistic approach for taking on the challenges of the present and preparing for the future. I would like to propose to you today, as we enter a new phase of transition for humanity in the 21st century, to recall that address pronounced by Jean-Paul II in 1978 as a message for all of us today. The message is simple, but also courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Faced with the major challenges of our era, as in previous periods of human history, we must gather our collective intelligence and advance together, without fear, towards our common future. I am convinced that universities, all universities, as part of their urban environments and as responsible actors in those urban environments, are now more than ever essential to mobilizing our collective intelligence and creating the world of tomorrow. Not alone, not as unconnected ivory towers, not separated from the populations around them without societal accountability. No. To be effective, active universities must be integrated into the towns, cities, metropolitan areas, and regions in which they are situated, and act together with the local environment to achieve dynamic, sustainable, and responsible development in the interest of the entire population, and not only of the students and faculty within the university structures themselves. In 2022, here in Katowice and throughout Europe and throughout the world, we are entering into a period of fundamental transition of our economies and of our societies. Two major transitions immediately come to mind. First, an ecological transition necessary for the survival of a population soon to exceed more than 8 billion human beings. What is at stake is the sustainable cohabitation of the human species with the other living species on our planet Earth in the face of significant climate change as well as growing threats to biodiversity and ecosystems. Second, an energy transition, moving away from the use of fossil hydrocarbons such as coal, petroleum, and natural gas, with the goal of more reliable, more self-sufficient energy production with locally available resources such as sunlight, wind, and biomass. What is at stake is not only to avoid the risk of even more extreme climate change scenarios by the end of the 21st century, but also to reduce the recurrent geopolitical pressures, conflicts, and hostilities created by the unbalanced distribution of fossil hydrocarbon reserves across the planet. These major transitions in ecology and energy are not isolated from each other, and are not isolated from the other fundamental changes in our economies and our societies. It suffices to think of the impact of the digital revolution, the accelerating breakthroughs in nanotechnology and biotechnology, and the rapid evolutions in lifestyle and expectations of the new generations of youth, to understand that the world of tomorrow will be different from the world of today. We at EuroScience, the European Association for the Advancement of Science and Technology, believe that scientific research and exploration in a framework of academic freedom and in all scientific disciplines, including the physical sciences, life sciences, social sciences, and humanities, can and must, as they have throughout the past, constitute an essential contribution to the effective achievement of the fundamental transitions before us. And we also believe that universities are a vital element in producing that contribution. But there is also an urgent need for change in the way we look at science in, with, and for society, and the way that scientists look at what they do and how they can adapt their own professional practice as responsible members of society, and not as isolated actors unconcerned by the social environment in which they live and work. To achieve that goal, it is essential that universities act in synergy with their immediate social environments, first and foremost with the cities and regions in which they operate. But they must also look beyond their borders, invest in international networks, and exchange with others on best practice. Effective dialogue and interaction between academic institutions and the urban communities that surround them is for us, at EuroScience, an essential vector for positive change. And it is for that reason that we have now been granting for more than a decade, every 2 years, the title of European City of Science to an urban area dedicated to developing and experimenting new approaches and initiatives that position science and research as vital elements in an integrated approach to urban development and transformation. The challenges for Katowice and for Silesia in the transition from an industrial economy anchored in the extraction of coal to a knowledge-based economy through synergy between the universities and the city was the major factor in the choice of EuroScience to grant the title of European City of Science 2024 to Katowice. I would like to congratulate both the city, the metropolitan area, and the region, as well as the Interuniversity Consortium for their successful bid for the title. We recognize that organizing the complex academic consortium around the City of Science is not always going to be easy. They look happy today, but you know, that's because we're wearing these gowns. But otherwise, it's going to be tough. It's not always easy, but it is really at the heart of the transition. Working together, getting to know each other, finding common goals. Academic institutions have always had a transformative effect on cities and regions. That has been done through their ability to attract and train intelligent, curious, creative, and innovative minds who can act as citizens of change. But also through the capacity to raise the profile of a city or region across borders and provide focal points for exchange and mutual learning with other institutions, cities, and regions through, for example, conferences such as the future International EuroScience Open Forum to be held in your region in 2024 with participants from around the world. For the audience who may not be familiar with this, the EuroScience Open Forum in 2024 will also be held in Silesia, and we would like at that time to draw the attention to not only the local aspect, but also the international European aspect of what you are doing here. Academic institutions can be agents for positive change for cities and regions, but in order to create this transformative effect, academic institutions must not be a separate entity within the city's perimeter, unconnected to the general population. On the contrary, the academic institutions must be an integral part of the city's cultural and economic ecosystem with, among other goals, the objective of bringing science closer to citizens. To profit from the transformative effects of academic institutions, cities and regions must provide the framework conditions for academic institutions to thrive and fulfill their purpose of attracting and training new talents, providing insights and assisting in evidence-based policymaking, as well as acting as independent and critical observers and sounding boards. But in a similar manner, this is not a one-way street. The academic institutions themselves must be open to change in their own organization, structures, and professional practice, in particular through support for young, early career teaching and research faculty, and for innovative approaches to teaching, learning, discovering, exploring, sharing, and publishing research and knowledge. The future of universities in this connection also involves changes in professional practice on other levels, including increased attention to questions of scientific integrity, ethics, and inclusiveness. I do not wish to be overly prescriptive since the initiative remains with you, all of you, as actors in the university, cities, and region, and we hope to be surprised by unexpected approaches and ideas that you may have. Nevertheless, I would like to suggest a few modest recommendations as President of EuroScience, and from the perspective of our vision. And what is our vision? as the European Society for the Advancement of Science and Technology. Our vision is the creation of a scientific workforce that creates positive change for society. Not positive change for itself, positive change for society. A few recommendations in this connection for the students. I mentioned this international conference, EuroScience Open Forum, known as ESOF, which will be organized in 2024. For those of you who are still here in 2024, I think you could use that conference to look beyond the borders of your individual disciplines, get new perspectives from other disciplines, institutions, and countries. I think also, as young people getting involved in the scientific endeavor, you might be interested in getting involved in associations such as EuroScience to develop the future role and societal impact of the various science professions. Scientific researchers, but also science teachers, science communicators, science journalists, science policymakers, and many others. And our association is not composed only of researchers, but also communicators, journalists, policymakers, and many others. There are lots of careers out there. This is a parenthetical remark. Many people who are doing, for example, studies at the university believe that the only career path is in the university. Not to be unpleasant with our university colleagues, but there are many, many other opportunities, and you should keep your eyes open for them. For the faculty members, a couple of ideas. To use the European City of Science label 2024 without waiting for 2024, and I see you're already doing it today. To enact with the society at large on a personal level, with mutual respect and in a spirit of true dialogue. And then to use the EuroScience Open Forum event in 2024 to look to new places and institutions beyond Silesia and Poland for collaborations and new networks, and to act not only as ambassadors for Katowice, the voivodeship of Silesia and Polish science, but also to use the opportunity to learn and exchange best practices with others. Finally, for policymakers and those who are like the representatives of the City Council here, to use the title of European City of Science 2024 as much as possible, to leverage investment in education and research in order to strengthen the scientific ecosystem of Katowice for a more sustainable future. We at EuroScience are proud to be associated with Katowice in its ambitious project to place science at the center of its transition to a sustainable knowledge-based economy and society. I thank you once again for your invitation to come and to speak to you today, and I wish you a successful and exciting inter-university year 2022-2023. Thank you very much.